Hi everyone, my name is Deirdre. While we're quarantined and sheltering in place, I thought this might be a good time to share with you a book that is very special to me. The name of the book is The Bellringer, and it's the first book in a series of 5. The series title is The Year of the Red Door. Some of you who are from the southeastern part of the United States or have visited may recognize some of the scenes, descriptions, flowers, plants, and even some of the accents may be familiar to you. Whosoever discovers the name of the king, so shall he become king. Prologue, Stegan's Fortunes. I come from your brother. This is his daughter called Chevalier. He charges you with the care of her until she is sent for. Meanwhile, she is to be known as one of your house with your name. When she is sent for, she and this box must come together. Your brother holds you responsible for her safekeeping during this time of strife, and he bids you take these deeds for land in County Barley in the Eastlands realm. With coin also that your brother supplies, quit this place and go hither to the north and take up your abode. That land is fertile and at peace. Your wife and this child will be safe from the turmoil that plagues us here, and you may make a fine living on the property given to you. Do you agree to accept this charge? Stegan Pratkin looked at the lordly messenger with suspicion, then at the box, old, made of polished wood, hardly bigger than a large book. I ain't seen me brother in 10 years or more, he said, throwing a quick glance at the tiny girl standing aside and behind the seated messenger. She couldn't be more than 3 or 4 years old. We're only stepbrothers at that. In all these years, has he done a thing for me? Why does he think I'm willing to do this? And why don't he come and ask himself? He cannot come, or else he would. You do not have a name in these lands as he does, and you will not be known in the Eastlands. It is for the sake of his daughter that he does this. In exchange for your faithful service to this request, you will be amply rewarded, far wealthier than otherwise, and freed from being a tenant. When the girl and the box are sent for, you will again be rewarded. The land in County Barley has acreage enough for crops and cattle, good wells, a fair house, and a good barn. With the coin, too, you may buy all the other things needed for a successful farm. If you remain a tenant on this estate, your future will not be secure. Indeed, all here will fare poorly when the new governor of this province makes his laws, for the master of these lands is not friendly with those who have recently come to power here in Tracia. It will not be long before there is a new master of this estate, one who will not be so kind or lenient to his tenants. And what's in the box, eh? That is not of your concern. But the box and the girl must both be kept safe. If anything amiss becomes of either the girl or the box, you will rue the day you were born. When she is sent for, she and the box must come together. That is the way of it. Without her, the box is worthless. With care to business and with the skill of your labors, you should have no want of money after but a few years. Well, a sweet bargain for sure, it seems. I believe it is very generous, nodded the messenger. Hear that, woman? We can get out of this hovel and in our own place. Stegan's young wife stood across the room, one hand propping up an elbow casually so that her other could more easily hide her swollen lip. She nodded without removing her hand from her face and said, "Oh, aye. Quite an opportunity, it seems." The messenger glanced at her, quickly observing again her black eye and the cut on her cheek, and he was clearly uncomfortable with this interview. "There is a stipulation," he said. "Ah?" Stegen frowned and nodded, leaning back in his chair and putting his hands on the table. "I knew there'd be something. Well, what is it then?" "Once every so often, perhaps every year, perhaps more often, you will have a visitor who will come to check on the girl and the box. He will have a key to the box and the means to see if the box has been tampered with. He will look at the girl to see if she is healthy or ill. He may also question your neighbors concerning you and the girl. If he finds anything amiss, if the box has been tampered with or the girl is mistreated in any way, a warrant will be submitted for your arrest." "What? For what?" "For theft of property. A price will be placed on you and your name given over to bounty hunters and reported to all the sheriffs of the land." Stegen remained motionless, staring at the stranger. Behind him, his wife stifled a gasp as her eyes widened. "The girl and the box are important. Neither would be given over to you in this way unless the need for care was great." After a long moment, Stegen stirred. "Well, how much coin, then?" The messenger reached for his saddlebag and removed 3 purses, letting each thud on the table. "A stone of Duanor silver and a half-stone of Glareth gold coin." Stegen's face lit up as his wife audibly gulped. "Enough to set you up nicely in your new home and to keep the 3 of you for a fair while," the messenger concluded flatly. "But you must make haste. If you accept this bargain, you must do so this night. If you do not accept, other arrangements will be made." The girl, the box, the money, and the wife were soon all loaded into a cart, along with their sparse belongings, and after Stegen informed his overseer of their departure and settled his meager debts to the estate, he took them all northward. Within a month they found the place in County Barley in the old Eastlands realm, and they established themselves on the farm. They all toiled, even the little girl, but Stegen toiled the least, preferring the jug and the dream to the plow or scythe, and he sought more from the fruit of his schemes than from that of the land. Sometimes he seemed grateful for the change in his fortunes, but at other times he was resentful, saying that his brother ought to have done more if he was so powerful and wealthy. Often was the night he held forth with jug in hand, his wife cringing, while the little girl made herself scarce behind a chest or under a cot. And more often than not, the day after market would find Stegen at the tavern in nearby Pasdale, then stumbling the long way home with little or nothing in his pockets to show for the produce sold that day, only to take more coins from the old purse and returning again the same evening to the tavern. In spite of Stegen's behavior, and perhaps to the credit of the previous tenants, the farm did well enough for the first few years, and its fields and gardens provided food for the table with surplus to sell at the marketplace, which was enough to somewhat offset the growing expense of Stegen's drink. As foretold, during the 3rd summer, a visitor did come to call, arriving during a time of day when Stegen was repairing a harness and his wife was hanging out the day's wash while the little girl pulled weeds from the kitchen garden. The visitor rode up on a fine horse, dressed in travel cloaks, dusty with his journey, and, as Stegen put down his tools and approached, the traveler unbuttoned his overcloak and looked over the place. "Are you Stegen?" "Aye." "Then I come to confirm the health of the girl and the safety of the box entrusted to your care," the rider said, dismounting. He pulled off his cloak, tossed it over the saddle, and hitched his horse. "Do you come from a brother, then?" "I am his agent, duly charged." "Well, come along and I'll show you the box." Stegen led the man inside. Standing on a chair, he pulled the box down from a high shelf and placed it on the table. "It is somewhat scuffed up," the visitor observed suspiciously, turning the box to examine every side. "There are scratches around the brasswork." "I ain't opened it," said Stegen. "The scuffing's from moving it round from time to time." "I can see it has not been opened," said the visitor, taking out a key from a chain around his neck. "Please stand back." "Ain't I got a right to see what's in it?" "You do not. Your right is only to benefit from keeping it and the girl safe." Unwilling to press the subject with the stern man, Stegen stepped back, saying, "Well, that I've done, as you'll see." Stegen watched as the man turned the key and lifted the lid so that it blocked Stegen's view of the contents. The man's face remained expressionless as he gazed into the box and reached in to touch its contents. After a moment, he abruptly closed the lid and locked it, returning the key to hang about his neck beneath his blouse. "Very well. And the girl?" "This way, right this way." Back outside, Stegen led the visitor past his wife, who looked on with concern. "You'd best be starting supper, hadn't you?" he grunted at her. "As soon as I get these hung," she replied, making a show of hurrying. "Will he be staying?" Stegen was more than mildly relieved when the visitor said, "No, thank you, madam. I'll be on my way after I see the girl." "Oh, very well, then," said Stegen, gesturing toward the garden. "Very well. Hey, Sheila, girl, get over here." "Why do you call her that?" asked the visitor. "Well, it's a nickname," answered Stegen. "These ain't fancy parts, and she ain't got need of a fancy name, eh? Get on out here, girl." I'm coming." There was a movement along the rows of beanstalks as a bundle of weeds appeared with two tiny arms stretched around, two naked feet underneath, and at the very top of a head of light brown hair, barely visible behind. "Yes, uncle. Drop them weeds and come here." The girl dropped her armful and stomped on them to approach. Wearing a simple blouse over pants, both made of sackcloth, she was barefooted with filthy feet and legs. In fact, she appeared to have not bathed in weeks, so mud and soot-stained was every inch of her body. Her short-cropped hair was tousled, and several twigs dangled from it. In spite of her appearance, she smartly stepped up to the two men and looked at them, turning from face to face with her hands akimbo, as if it was she who had summoned them. "Dressed in a boyish manner," the visitor stated. "Well, more fitting when she's out of doors. And she loves doing things out of doors. Regular tomboy she is." "Has she any shoes?" "Why, of course. Why ain't you wearing your shoes, girl?" "I don't like 'em." "Get 'em on and let us see 'em." She disappeared into the beans and quickly reappeared, holding in each hand a tattered mass of something more akin to sandals, so many gaps there were in the leather. "See, there they are," Stegen said to the visitor. "Well, put 'em on, girl." The little girl dropped to the ground, sitting, and struggled to put the shoes on her feet. "Why is her hair cropped so short?" "Oh, well, that's on account of she got it all tangled up with pine pitch last week, and it was all we could do to save what she's got left." And does she ever bathe?" "She certainly does," Stegen nodded defensively. "Most every fortnight, if my wife can catch her." The visitor frowned as he watched the girl struggle to tie her shoes. After a moment, he gave an almost imperceptible sigh, and with a little shake of his head, he turned. Very well, I've seen enough. I must go. Stegen watched the visitor ride off, then turned to the house and bellowed, Get back to your weeding! The girl frowned, and just before disappearing into the stalks, she kicked her shoes off. Did he say when he'd be back? The wife asked as Stegen slumped through the door. No. He pulled a cup and a jug from the shelf, kicked a chair over to the table, and sat down heavily, uncorking the jug and pouring its pungent liquid into the cup. Before him on the table was the box, and he hardly took his eyes from it for the rest of the night. 2 years later, the incremental increase of drink and brooding was taking its toll on Stegen. His temper, his increasing indifference to work, and the labors needed by the farm. So too it had its dark way with his wife, his niece, and those of the county who at first had been willing to be good friends and neighbors. When the visitor came again, Stegen had the temerity to insist on more money. You have been paid and rewarded in advance, the visitor told him. The agreement stands, promises made, and they shall be carried out. Surely my brother will send for this child soon, argued Stegen. Am I to take care of her, feed and clothe her for the rest of her life then? If need be. Then why don't he come himself? Oh, but I reckon he's too high and mighty, eh? His agents are faithful to him, sir, and I hope you are too. I bid you good day. Matters only grew worse. Within the month of the second visit by his brother's agent, Stegen's wife had abandoned him and the girl, running off with a traveling tinkerman who passed through the parts. And to Stegen's increased aggravation, the little girl was becoming ever more willful and disobedient. Stegen's fortune was soon depleted by drink, so that he, by the necessity of his tavern debts, began to work somewhat harder than before, and to drive the girl harder too, insomuch as his sorry state and her impishness would allow. The years crept by, and though the mysterious agent never returned, and neither was the girl sent for, Stegen nonetheless felt as though he was being watched. This feeling only increased his sullen and spiteful disposition, and he took to mumbling and glancing over his hunched shoulders. The farms and neighbors all around prospered in relative happiness and peace, while Stegen's land steadily declined in fruitfulness. And while his neighbors enjoyed and celebrated each passing season, sharing with each other good company and kind spirits, Stegen and his young charge grew ever more aloof of them and ever more miserable. That's the end of the prologue. Thanks for tuning in. Look for chapter 1 coming soon. Have a good day.